and the haunting rhythm in the Itarsi Express. We have Bishhal Paull, who leads us through the misty, secret-filled corridors of Valor House International. And we have Nitish Bhushan, who exposes the fragile fault lines of modern love, loyalty, and digital danger. Okay, so I've prepared some 7 rounds. So let's start with the first one, the opening round of tone setting and word building. So Vivek, my first question is for you. Your novel captures the gritty, restless heartbeat of Mumbai, especially the mysterious disappearance around a night train. So what first sparked this story? The city, the train, or the mystery?
Mumbai has long inspired me. It's my Janma Bhumi. In all its chaos, with all its chaos, it is very charming. And I would truly say that Mumbai and this state have made me, and they continue to inspire me. But in specific, if we get into this story, it's the characters. Every single character in this book I have met firsthand, or I have known of them. And since you've already gone through the book, we can talk offline about how I met some of those people. But every single person in here is very close to a real life person. So yeah, that's where it all started. And in that sense, the train is that it's that conduit to bring them all together. And yeah, that's where the story unfolds.
Wow. Okay, so Bishal, my next question is for you. So Valor House International feels eerie, yet believable. So almost like a school is hiding something itself. So what inspired you to create such a psychologically charged boarding school?
So I was meaning to write a book since a long time, and I was dwelling with a lot of ideas. And then I thought that, I'm soon approaching 30, and I'll soon be in the category of people who no longer understand younger people of a certain generation and certain age group. So I thought this is like the last moment when I should ideally write about so-called young adults. So that's the reason why I decided to take up this as a genre. And I was fortunate enough to travel to a lot of these elite schools and residential boarding schools. I also got the opportunity to stay over in a couple of them, and the kind of stories that each one of them had was fascinating. Plus, my idea of how 16-year-old or a 17-year-old would behave or think, or what their issues would be, was quite dated, is what I realized, because it was kind of similar to what I used to think during my time, but it's not at all the same, right? They think different, they behave differently. So those are the kind of issues that I found very interesting. And later I thought that how can I make it different from all the other boarding school dramas that exist in different forms. So I realized that because I come from Northeast India, I come from Guwahati, Assam, and we have such a huge, history and culture heritage, which is not known to much of India, because we are a little bit cut off from the mainland. So I thought, why not, use that folklore of the land and kind of merge it with contemporary issues. And yeah, that's how the boarding world of Valor House was formed. Yeah.
Okay, Nitish, for you. Your book opens with modern romance and quickly shifts into digital danger. So what made you choose a dating app as the trigger for a full-blown mystery thriller?
Why not a dating app? See, this is where hope meets vulnerability, no? Right? You're hopeful, but you're also vulnerable. Yeah. So let me explain. So the idea first came to my mind in 2017, right? And I know for sure that at that time, no one was writing on this topic, right? So it was unique. I had a head start. So I wrote about it. Now, Love Swipe Blackmail is the first part of a 3-part series in which I'm writing around tech, moral dilemmas, and relationships, right? And the tech in the first part is very easy to understand and comprehend. It is a dating app. So it's a game at interpersonal level. It's happening between 2, 3, 4 people, right? That's where it is happening. right? So like I said, hope meets vulnerability. So on one side of the app is an aspiration which wants to meet with an aspiration on the other side also, right? But what if someone who knows you knows that you are doing this stuff on the dating app? That is one part of the problem. The second part of the problem is, what if they also know your significant other, right? That's where the blackmail starts. So this is hope meeting with vulnerability. You are at your most optimistic and you are also at your most exposed. So ho gaya na thrill?
Absolutely. So this is, so the tone is set now. You know about a little bit about the books. So the round 2 is the character round. So the protagonist and the motivations. So Vivek, Suryakant Patil is a former encounter specialist, now trapped behind a desk. So carrying guilt, instinct and unresolved darkness. How did you craft his inner conflict? Is my question for you.
See, this came to me from the viewpoint of a man who has had a glorious past. Inspector Patil has been a celebrated encounter specialist, but through various circumstances, he's lost that. He's doing stuff which he regards as mundane in the present. It is a man who is driving forward with a fixation on the rearview mirror. And that, as you can imagine, cannot go too well. That's one part of it. The second part of it is he's inherently an honest man, but the methods he chooses to deploy have fallen out of favor. He yearns for going back to those glory days. He just has no idea how he's going to do it. So it's a man who's trapped between his present and an unhealthy obsession with the past. And then when you throw in a layer of him finding that glimmer of hope in a certain case and deciding to go after it without the real official sanction, is what produced a character like that.
Bishal, my question for you is for Angad. So Angad is ambitious yet vulnerable, curious yet afraid. How did you strike the balance between a believable teenager and a compelling mystery hero?
While interacting with these kids in different schools, I came across primarily two category of kids, One who are like these so-called alpha, who are like very confident, very popular. And then you would also find majority people who are very quiet into themselves. But then I also found a third category, which was a very interesting category, which is the overexcited kid. That they may or may not be extremely good in what they are trying to do, but they would always put in that effort. So that was a very interesting, observation that I had, and that was the basis of the protagonist that I have, Angad. Because Angad, if you meet him in real life, he would come across as this very confident, very happy, very jovial kind of a guy. But he has a lot of resentment hiding within him. And also, he's very vulnerable in multiple ways. So he's always afraid of the fact that, if somebody realizes his vulnerability, then maybe he'll be exposed. And that's why he kind of puts up this image of himself as being this alpha kind of a guy. So the inspiration primarily came from there.
Okay, Nitish, for you, Ravi is flawed, confused, loyal, tempted, deeply human. So, was it difficult to write a protagonist who is both sympathetic and responsible for his own chaos?
Okay, so, it's about a man who's good, but sometimes can take a decision that can cost him, right? So, constructing Ravi, whether this kind of a character, constructing this kind of a character was difficult or not, I'll leave for you guys to decide, but let me share the thought process that went behind it.
Yeah.
So, like I said in the previous answer, the idea came in 2017. And the idea was that there's a married couple. And the man decides to go out gallivanting on a dating app. Right? Why? So, a couple of reasons came to my mind. I picked up the most suitable one. Now, when I say reasons, not justification of this kind of a behavior, right? This is what the character was thinking, right? So one thing led to another, right? And so, like in the previous one, I explained about tech. This is where the relationship and the moral dilemma comes in, right? One is in a relationship, then why should one step out? And if one steps out, to what extent? So it was a process of deep thought. I mean, right? Because writing such a character is not very easy. Building such a character is not very easy. There are layers and layers to all of us. Human beings are flawed, right? I think that is what being human means, right? And that is where I come back to my previous point that he's a good man, but he can still take decisions which can cost him. Now, does he survive those decisions? That's the beauty of it.
Absolutely. Yes. So now let's talk about the craft, the pacing, the suspense, and the tension. So, Vivek, your pacing is sharp and cinematic. So, what's your secret to writing thriller that doesn't give readers a moment to breathe? And it doesn't.
Firstly, my starting point really, when I'm figuring out the rhythm and the pace, is to accept that we live in slightly distracted times.
Yeah.
We have fragmented and very, very short attention spans. We are surrounded by screens, and it's not a matter of choice. There are work screens, there are personal screens, there are screens to time out and have fun, but it's a reality. So people have increasingly shorter attention spans and patience, and expectations are high because there is a good deal of high quality content out there. So keeping that in mind, the idea is to intersperse quiet moments of introspection which are insightful and which resonate with readers, with high-paced action. Preferably, again, something which the audience isn't used to, or not something which they've come across before, or not something which sounds too familiar to them. If we can merge the two in a balanced fashion, such that each moment of introspection and action keeps the plot moving forward, is what would result in fairly engaging content, according to me.
Bishhal, your tension builds slowly. So, whispers, shadows, vanishing students. How do you decide when to reveal, what to hide, and how long to delay the truth?
I think as a thriller writer, you want to delay the truth as much as possible. And when I was, when I started writing the book, it was just one story for one book. Then it kept on expanding, and now it's like 3 books. So this is like the first book. So yeah, definitely, while revelations has happened in this book, there are so much more to also explore. So you can imagine how much I have tend to delay it. But I think the joy of any thriller book comes from the fact that you expect something and then something else comes around, and your expectations are subverted at every juncture. So that's what I have tried to do. And interestingly, because there are multiple characters which are there in the book, their perspectives, their experiences, their baggages, so it takes a little time to kind of explore those and bring them into light. So I tried my best to keep it as choppy and crisp also as possible, but at the same time keep the momentum going.
And Nitish, your book jumps timelines, yet feels smooth and gripping. So, how do you structure suspense so the reader stays hooked and never confused?
Yeah. So, when I wrote my first draft, and he asked me that my book jumps timelines. So, there are alternate chapters from past and the present, right?
Yes.
And when I wrote the first draft and I reread, I was slightly confused myself. In the sense that as an author, I knew what I've written, right? I know which chapter belongs to which timeline, but the reader would not. right? So that's the reason why I changed the names of the chapters. So the chapters' names are not what were there in the original part, right? So every chapter from the past has been named like that. 2 years ago, 1 year and 9 months ago, right? 1 year and 6 months ago. So that's how I've done. See, in movies or in web series, it's very easy to depict the past. You just have to change your color filter, right? थोड़ा brown कर दिया, past हो गया, right? थोड़ा सा brown किया, past हो गया. Book में हमारे पास वो leverage नहीं है. We can't choose a brown paper. Otherwise, the publisher will die of the cost. So instead of doing that, I named the chapters accordingly. That was a thing to remove the confusion. The thing to maintain the thrilling narrative. Okay. Whether it is a chapter which is being written in the past, or let's say a chapter being written in the past, if the chapter is not contributing to something or not explaining to something which is happening in the present, then the chapter is not needed, right? And therefore, even the chapters in the past have not just been written with a point to explain, they've been written in a thrilling tone, right? Almost every chapter has been written like that. Past में भी reader ये सोच रहा है कि अब इसके बाद क्या होगा. So I think that's the treatment I've done. So one is that I read the entire draft, changed a few chapter headings, not few, almost half of them, because almost half of the book is in the past timeline, and then maintain the pacing in such a way that there's a thrill even while reading the past. It's not just explaining what's happening in the present, it's also thrilling to read.
So now let's talk about themes. So let's talk about emotions, psychology and philosophy behind all these three books. So Vivek, the railway tracks almost become symbols. So symbol of fate, danger, memory, even entrapment. So what deeper meaning do they hold in your story?
So the railway tracks really are representative of an intersection of destiny and consequences. We make certain choices in life, expecting that those choices would lead us somewhere. But then, as in life, these railway tracks don't always take you forward. You make choices thinking it would achieve a certain goal, but along these tracks, you may not reach that destination. The destination might change. The train might not stop there. But truly, in the book, these tracks also lead back in time, and that's what is the sense of danger and mystery about them. So in a way, they're representative of life itself and how it unfolds at times according to plan, but most often it's what happens.
And what you, Bishal, your book explores fear, guilt, loneliness and buried secrets. So which human emotion was the hardest for you to depict authentically?
I would say trauma, because all of us go through our experiences very differently, and the way we perceive trauma or we experience it is very different and very objective. So because each character was going through their own kind of issues and problems, along with the central theme which was there, because the central theme also has like a boy missing who is supposedly presumed dead, and the mother is hunting for the child. So I think that feeling kind of is universal, because you can somehow empathize with the mother, but not until and unless you have actually lost a son that you have born as a child, you would not know how intense that pain is, right? So no matter how intense the language is, how much effort you put into express that, it would never be enough. So I personally feel that trauma is extremely difficult to deal with, and at the same time also human emotions are so complex that most of the times when you express something, you don't even know how it will be perceived by the other person. Sometimes you might write a certain set of lines which you might feel is beautiful, but the other person might find it cringe, right? So I think human emotions in general is difficult to deal with. Of course, as thriller writers, probably we get a little bit more leeway, because we have excuses, because we have twists and turns to deal with, and we use them as shields. But otherwise, I really enjoy reading a lot of fiction which deals with a lot of drama, because that is the place where you can find a lot of depth of human emotions. So.
You know, one thing, if I may add, right? It's not that an idea all of a sudden pops into our head, right? Like he said, you know, there are a lot of experiences. Many a times we draw from what is happening in reality. Okay, let me narrate this incident. There's a friend of mine who received a call on his WhatsApp. It was a video call, and it was from an unknown number, right? And there was a lady on the other side, and she got into some visual obscenity, right? And this guy was completely confused as to what was happening, and he was looking into the screen, doesn't know what's happening, and you know, the screen goes blank, and it went on for about a minute or so. Then the call disconnected, and this lady texted him on WhatsApp itself saying that we made a recording of the video, right? And if you don't pay us an X amount of money, we are going to post it online. Now, see this, that thankfully, you know, the guy was not drawn into the act. He was still sitting with his clothes on. In fact, he says for all, he says all that I remember was I was astonished what's happening, right? So it was surprise all over my face. Clearly nothing else. So he said, I told her that, look, you do whatever you want to do. I don't care. जहाँ पे इसको अपलोड करना है कर दो. जो आप कर रहे हो मैं तो कुछ कर नहीं रहा. I'm just sitting over there. This gives a food for thought to a lot of fiction writers. But just imagine if he had indulged, right? कहाँ जाता वो? And these things happen. This is something which happened in reality.
Okay, so your story highlights how digital footprints can threaten real relationships. So what scares you more? Someone knowing our secrets or someone owing our data?
Okay, so there are only two types of people in the world. When I say there are only two types of people in the world, I mean after the IT revolution. All of us have laptops, all of us have mobiles, right? We have electronic devices. So believe you me when I say this, there are only two types of people in the world. Those who have lost data and those who will lose data, right? There is no third category. At some point in time, you will be cyber attacked and you lose some of your data. Now, to answer your question, you know, whether someone knows our secrets, which could affect our pride, right? Or someone has data about us or our information, right? They have leverage over us, right? And that's not a good space to be in. If you look at, you know, how the tech giants do it. So if you go browsing on the incognito mode, Chrome says that I'm not storing your history, right? But that does not mean Chrome doesn't know where you're going. Chrome also says that while I am not storing your history, your internet service provider knows exactly where you're going. So now at least two people know where you're going. You've got to be really careful as to where you're going. It's not a happy place to be in. So if your data or your secrets are with someone, they have leverage over you, and you know, what is the intensity of that data or secret or the information that they have will decide what kind of leverage they have on you.
Now let's go to the personal round of their choices, the challenges and reflections. So Vivek, as someone who has worked across continents, what personal experience shaped the authenticity of your Mumbai police world?
See, I've been very fascinated with crime and the criminal mind and what motivates it, and by extension thereof, also with those who uphold the law and battle pretty challenging circumstances in doing what's right versus what needs to be done. Having lived in a few different countries, I've been a keen observer of how law enforcement in each of those geographies operates, from India to the Middle East to Canada, and each one of them has a totally different approach towards law enforcement. But coming to Mumbai Police in specific, this was closer home, because growing up in my college years, I had a bunch of classmates whose fathers were senior officers in the Mumbai police. And I spent those 4 or 5 years hearing from them everything that wouldn't make it to the headlines. And there you begin to really appreciate and get a sense of, all right, this also happens as a cop. You would never even think of it. And that really, was like a seed which grew with added knowledge and then developing eyes and ears for gathering that kind of data over the years.
So Bishal, you moved from entrepreneurship and digital media into dark academic fiction. So what personal fear or curiosity pushed you towards this genre?
Personally, I always felt that I'm a thriller writer, like a liar. Yeah, liar, you can say.
Tell us the dark fantasies.
Yeah, well. So, no, but honestly, I think every writer inherently feels drawn towards a certain genre. They might be writing in different genres, but they are drawn towards a certain specific genre. And I personally always felt that I am good with thrillers in general. So I always wanted to write a thriller. Dark academia just happened to be something which was of interest to mine 4-5 years back when initially I was thinking of this idea. And my experiences of working in film campaigns or political campaigns, etc., interestingly made me meet a lot of characters, if I may put it that way, who are like very different when they are in front of public eye. And behind the curtain they are very different. And because I also happen to come from a background where I create public perception for individuals, it always fascinated me how, truth is so deceptive. And especially in today's time, like we all are sitting here right now, we are putting our best foot forward. All the people in the audience would always only remember us by our conduct here. And that's a very carefully crafted image of ours that we are putting it out, right? But we all may or may not be the same person in real life. So that I found it very fascinating, and I thought that why not explore that in the form of a book? And that's how this book was found.
And Nitish, you began the book at chapter 35. So a bold storytelling move, I must say. So what made you take that risk, and how did readers respond to it?
So one of the beta readers came back to me saying, "मेरे को आधी story मिली है." Right, but chapter 35 being the first chapter was a decided move. Right, I wanted to structure the book differently. So I guess that's how I did it. I mean, I wanted to delightfully unsettle my readers. I think that's what I did, because even so, forget getting the manuscript, right? उसमें हो सकता है कि कोई सोचे यार 35 मेरे को आधी book मिली है. People who picked up the book for the first time also, and when they went to the index, or when they serendipitously landed on the first chapter, and the chapter was chapter 35, they all said नहीं ये पूरी छपी नहीं है. एक जगह पे ये भी पूछा कि भैया इसका फर्स्ट पार्ट कहाँ है? So उन्होंने बोला यही पार्ट है पूरा, कोई और फर्स्ट पार्ट नहीं है. So the idea was to just delightfully unsettle my readers, and I think it got done. It worked.
It worked really well. I was also surprised. क्या हुआ? Okay, quick last questions for each one of them. So if Itarsi Express becomes a web series tomorrow, which is one scene you refuse to let anyone change from the manuscript?
See, production and execution are very collaborative exercises. So I would like to think that I would be a team player. But if I had the choice to not change, then it would be 2 parts. The first one is those moments of introspection and really where the character comes to the fore. For example, the dialogues between Patil and Thakur about practicing duty without detachment. That is something which has resonated with a lot of readers, and they've told me that they felt for that. Secondly, the dynamic between, again, Patil and Thakur, where Patil, despite being a senior officer, sees Thakur almost as his Krishna, whom he goes to for advice without ever formally asking him for that advice. He gets it when he needs it. That's one part, and the second part really are the action sequences, the police encounters, as also the action of the British East India forces against certain other groups in India.
So I think in the end you should write the screenplay.
I'm sorry?
You should write the screenplay.
Given a choice?
Isn't it? Okay, so if Weller House had one final secret, something too dark to include in this book, what would that secret be? If Weller House had one final secret, something too dark to include in this book, what would that secret be?
I think Valor House already has too many secrets which are yet to
Dark
be there in the dark secrets in the book. That's why you have part 2 and part 3 coming
Part
out.
3 coming.
So I would say that there is a lot to look forward to. Especially anybody who reads the book will be left with a lot of questions more than answers, for which hopefully they'll be excited to read book part 2 and part 3. Okay. So I would reserve those secrets for those books.
And what is the one message or warning you hope every reader carries with them after finishing Love Swipe Blackmail?
Be very careful on the internet. So seriously. It's not about somebody crawling into your system to figure out the information about you. There's a lot of information that you leave on the internet without realizing that you've left it over there. Right? You go to websites, you fill up some forms. Everything we do, each swipe, we wish that it was not recorded. In the electronic world, the information is never deleted. Okay, every swipe, every tap, every click, every close, every open that we've done, that information is always there. It is never deleted. You know why? For a very simple reason. Because that is what all the free services on the internet monetize. Right? That's how you might be talking about something, your phone picks it up, and the next day or maybe the same day in the evening you start seeing those ads. So many times it's happened that you go on internet and you're checking out a website, you're checking out a product, you're checking out shoes, okay, from any particular brand, you're checking out shoes, and in the next few hours on Instagram you start getting ads only from that shoe company. Exactly. Right? So far it's okay, there is no harm in it, right? There's no harm in this kind of data being there. But I'm sure we all understand what kind of data should not be out there, right? So that's what I would say, be very, very careful when you're on the internet. Internet is not a friend. Internet is definitely not the friend it claims to be.
So now the floor is open for the audience. Anyone has any questions?
Hello, sir. My name is Avanti Maheshgari and I'm a media student. My question is, what do you guys think about, is the fascination of murder mysteries a human curiosity or a problematic cultural obsession with violence?
See, according to me, it's the human obsession for resolution. If there's a murder and there's a mystery around it, everybody has to know who did it. The need for resolution plays itself out in every format of storytelling. Even if it's a romance, for example, you got to know who she goes with at the end of the story, right? But with murder mysteries, of course, it can be a lot more, maybe engaging is a mild word, but it's more raw, it's visceral, and that's what gets readers hooked. It also explains the obsession with the true crime genre across every OTT platform that you can imagine today.
Yeah, I'm Satish Pendarkar. I would like to know which authors each one of you were influenced by, and what did you take from those authors? What learnings did you take from those authors? Maybe Agatha Christie, or maybe Conan Doyle, Sherlock Holmes, or maybe some other.
So, of course, most of the writers are themselves very voracious readers. So I think it will be common for all of us that we read quite a lot, and we have quite a few favorites. But for this particular book, I would say that because I wanted to write a book which is not very heavy, because the themes are already very heavy, so I didn't want to write the literature aspect of it in a very heavy manner. So I started reading a lot of thriller books which are called popcorn thrillers, right? Because they're very easy to consume, language is not that difficult, the pacing is faster. So I ended up reading a lot of those genre books, and Frida McFadden is a very prolific thriller writer. So her books are usually considered popcorn thrillers, and not all of them are great, but couple of them which I personally enjoyed a lot. And I have to say that Jerry sir is here, Jerry Pinto, my childhood hero, because I have grown up reading him. And he has been all of us, and he has been such an inspiration everywhere since I was a kid, and through my formative years I used to always go and hear him out, especially during Karagola festivals also. So definitely sir is one of them.
For me, it would be Frederick Fawcett for the ability to blend fact and fiction seamlessly. So when you're going through the story, you're no longer sure what is imaginary and what really happened. And then, of course, more lately, as in the past 10 or 12 years, Lee Child for raw, blunt action.
Okay, so the foreign authors that I've read are Larry Collins and Dominic Lepier. Three of their books are absolutely, they're historical narratives. So one is Freedom at Midnight, which is about India. So Freedom at Midnight covers the period 1 year prior and 1 year post our independence. All the violence that took place, what exactly was taking place, who was making the decisions. I think there's a lot of surprise for us in there if we read that book, right? Let me share one with you. In one particular incident, when our national leadership was not able to control the religious violence, Nehru and Patel both went back to Mountbatten to take the baton and start implementing law and order. And Mountbatten was completely foxed. He said, look, you jokers, you fought your entire life for independence, and now that it's finally come, you're coming back to us to handle it. No way. You learn your own stuff. So that's one book. Second is O Jerusalem, in which, again, it's a 1 year story prior to Israel's formation. In the entire book, right from the first chapter to the penultimate chapter, the existence of the Israeli state is very, very doubtful, right? And again, it's all historical. So they mention the facts as well. The same muck that British created here, they created there as well, right? They were leaving, their going away was not very smooth, very clean. How beautifully the Israeli leadership planned on how to save themselves and how to save their nation comes out in the last chapter. How ultimately they succeed. Right, so I picked up from them. So while these books may be historical books, they are thrillers in their own way, right? Then there was Is Paris Burning? Now this is a question which Hitler asked General Dietrich von Scholtitz, who was a commander of Paris at that time. So when the German forces were withdrawing, von Scholtitz was the commander of German forces in Paris, in whole of France. And Hitler gave him the order to burn Paris before leaving, right? So this was the question he asked. Scholtitz, is Paris burning? So there's a whole book on that. Again, a very, very beautiful book. Back home, I love reading mythology quite a lot. So there's an author from our own publishing house, Priyanka Sharma Kantora. She's beautifully demystified the mythology behind the goddess, right? The book's name is Mahadevi. It's a beautiful, beautiful book. I also, we all know Ramayana and Mahabharata, but all the tales are not fully known. The deeper you start getting into these epics, you realize what twists and turns are there. Let me give you a very short example. We all know that Bhagwan Shri Krishna went to the Kauravas and asked for just 5 villages ultimately, right? कि 5 गांव दे दो, हम settle कर लेंगे. Duryodhan never gave those villages. We know that. Why did he not give those villages? Because of 5 villages that Krishna ji asked him were on 5 different parts of the empire. So think like a king. Duryodhan thought like a king. That if these are the 5 villages I have to give to the Pandavas, rebellion can start from anywhere. Right? Tomorrow they can encircle me. Now let me give you a backstory for this. When Krishna ji was going to meet with the Kauravas and thrash this out, Sahadev went to him. Now Nakul and Sahadev are not as known as the rest of the Pandavas, right? But Sahadev and Nakul were both brilliant. And this is where the strategy of Sahadev comes in. Sahadev went and told Shri Krishna, please ask for these 5 villages, Duryodhan will never give them to us. They wanted war. Right now, when you start understanding these layers behind our epics, at least it really gave me a lot of ideas to write my own fiction. Right? Mahabharata has more than 1 lakh verses, Ramayana has more than 25,000. Believe you me, the stories are way beyond than what we know, than what we are told in the general discourse. They are they are much more complicated than what we know. Much more complicated.
I had a question. Vivek, you mentioned the burning need for the reader to have the resolution, who done it, right? My question is about the formula. So it appears to me that there is this formula in murder mysteries is who done it. Is there anything beyond that? Do you try and write to that? Or do you try and appeal to the audience knowing that they want to know who done it? For example, romance must have happily ever after or happy for now. There are formulas in romance, horror, murder. And then I'd like to extend that to the others, even in your genres. Do you give in to the formula, whatever it is, or how do you go beyond the formulaic? Is it worth it?
That's a very interesting question, because the thing with formulas is one gotta respect them. So you got to follow that direction. But where we try to make a difference is, for instance, in Itarsi Express, less than midway through the book, you know who done it. But that's where the story begins. Because there is then a resolution which has to take place. Now that the reader knows who done it, what's going to be done about that character? And how does it play itself out? So the trick really is in respecting the formula, but figuring out how to go beyond. This could very easily have been a story where we saved whodunit till the very end, right? And kept the readers hooked in that way. But there's different ways at it while keeping that construct intact.
So I genuinely hope that all of you will pick up these books, because each one offers a different reason to turn the page, stay up late, and question everything you think you know. So thank you for being a wonderful audience, and thank you to all of you.